Welcome to today's video. Today we have two terrifying stories about demonic possession. The Shadow Within. Emma had always been an ordinary woman, living in a modest house at the end of Maple Street. She worked at the local library and spent her evenings curled up with a good book. But that changed when the dreams began. At first, they were mere whispers, shadows creeping along her walls, hints of something lurking just beyond her vision. But soon they became vivid nightmares, drawing her into a dark forest thick with the stench of decay. Each night she found herself standing there, paralyzed with fear, as a gaunt figure loomed closer, its ember-like eyes burning into her soul. "You're mine," it hissed. Emma woke each time in a cold sweat, heart racing, unable to shake the feeling that something sinister was creeping into her life. Strange occurrences followed. Objects in her home moved or shattered inexplicably. Whispers echoed in her ears even during daylight, and a palpable presence settled in her room at night. One evening, as she closed up the library, an old leather-bound book caught her eye. There was no title on the cover, yet an inexplicable urge compelled her to take it home. As she read, she discovered it was a diary, chronicling the life of a woman from centuries ago. The entries spoke of a demon that possessed its victims, corrupting them from within. "It feeds on fear and despair," the final entry warned. "Once it takes hold, it never lets go." Chilled to the bone, Emma closed the book, but the darkness around her deepened. She felt the demon growing stronger, feeding off her mounting dread. In desperation, she sought Father O'Malley, the local priest. He listened intently, with his brow furrowed with concern. "There are ancient rites that can banish such a creature," he warned. "But they are perilous. The demon will fight back." With no other choice, Emma agreed to the ritual. Father O'Malley prepared the church, lighting the candles and inscribing protective symbols on the floor. As he began to chant, a malevolent energy surged within her. Pain shot through her body, as if the demon were clawing at her very essence. The shadows thickened, swirling like a living fog, and she could hear the demon's growl, promising torment and despair, and finally, ultimate possession. Father O'Malley's voice rose, the light from the candles pulsing against the darkness. Emma felt something within her snap, as if a dam had burst. She collapsed, gasping for air, but as she looked up, she felt a glimmer of hope. Then came the darkness, swallowing her whole. When Emma regained consciousness, she found herself back in her home, but everything felt wrong. The shadows had returned, darker than before. whispering secrets in a language she couldn't understand. She looked in the mirror. The reflection of a gaunt figure behind her, its eyes glimmering with victory. "You thought you could get rid of me?" it mocked. A sinister smile spread across its face. Panic surged through her. But deep down, she felt something shift. A sinister connection binding her to the demon. It wasn't gone. It had merged with her, weaving itself into the very fabric of her being. Days passed, and Emma's life spiraled. Friends noticed the change, her laughter replaced by a hollow echo, her eyes reflecting an abyss of despair. She isolated herself, haunted by the whispering shadows that danced on the edge of her vision. Desperate for release, she returned to Father O'Malley. But when she arrived at the church, she found it abandoned, its doors locked tight. She banged on the door, crying out for help, but the silence was deafening. It was as if the very sanctuary had been consumed by darkness. With no one left to turn to, Emma fell deeper into the abyss. The demon within her grew bold, pushing her to the brink of madness. It reveled in her fear, whispering dark secrets, urging her to embrace the darkness instead of fighting it. One night, as the shadows thickened and her sanity frayed, Emma stood before the mirror, staring into her own eyes. She could see the demon grinning back, a twisted reflection of her former self. "Embrace me," it hissed, as darkness flooded her veins. "Together we are unstoppable." In that moment, Emma realized the truth. She was no longer just Emma. She was a vessel, a puppet of darkness, for what now thrived within her. The last remnants of her former self screamed in despair, but the demon's laughter drowned them out. The shadows enveloped her entirely, and, with a final breath, Emma surrendered to the abyss, knowing she would never escape the nightmare that had consumed her. Maple Street would remember her, but only as a whisper, a warning of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of the ordinary. And as the last flicker of light faded from her eyes, the demon smiled, its grip eternally secure. The dark reflection. Sarah always felt drawn to the old mirror she found at a yard sale, a heavy, ornate piece with a dark wooden frame. It hung in her living room, casting an elegant charm over her modest apartment. But soon, it became more than just a decoration. At night, Sarah began to see shadows flickering in the glass, darker than the room around it. Whispers echoed from its depths, soft and insidious, promising secrets and hidden power. The more she stared into it, the more it seemed to draw her in, urging her to explore its depths. One evening, after another long day at work, Sarah felt particularly vulnerable. She sat in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back with weary eyes. That's when she first noticed the change. A sinister smile that twisted her reflection's lips, a darkness pooling behind her eyes. "Let me in," the voice whispered, a chilling invitation. Days turned into weeks, and the whisper grew louder, more demanding. They promised strength, confidence, a way to escape her mundane life. Sarah resisted at first, but with each passing night, the urge to surrender became harder to ignore. One fateful evening, she stood before the mirror, trembling. The air felt thick with tension as the whispers became louder, urging her to embrace the darkness. Finally, unable to fight any longer, she reached out and touched the glass. As her fingers brushed the surface, a jolt of energy surged through her. The reflection rippled like water, and in an instant, she was pulled into the mirror's depths. The world around her twisted and darkened until she was standing in a shadowy realm that mirrored her own, but felt infinitely more sinister. "You're free here," it cooed. "Embrace your true self." For a while, Sarah reveled in the darkness. She found courage she never knew she had, confronting her insecurities head-on. But as days passed, the darkness began to consume her, stripping away her humanity. Her friends noticed her absence, her once bright spirit replaced by a haunting emptiness. Desperate for help, Sarah tried to escape the mirror, but the demon's grip tightened. It twisted her thoughts, weaving despair into her very essence. Each attempt to break free only fed its power, pushing her deeper into the abyss. Finally, she could see it clearly. The reflection was no longer just a dark version of herself. It was the demon, fully formed and reveling in her suffering. In a moment of clarity, she realized the truth. There would be no escape. On the final night, Sarah stood before the mirror, her heart heavy with despair. The demon's laughter filled the air, a chilling symphony of victory. "You belong to me now," it whispered, its smile wide and menacing. With one last breath, Sarah felt the last remnants of her spirit slip away. The mirror's surface shimmered, absorbing her completely. And in that instant, her reflection vanished, leaving only the demon to stare back. Her apartment was silent, the old mirror hanging still, an ominous reminder of the darkness that now claimed her soul. Outside, life continued, unaware that Sarah had become a vessel for the malevolent entity lurking just beyond the glass, waiting for its next victim. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe for more videos from the narrator.